here to sort of just give you a little history about how we started our Women's Fund in Tahoe and our challenges, and then hopefully motivate you to become part of this Women's Giving Fund. You'll gain nothing more than inspiration and be enlightened by all of the women around you. So basically, before I joined the Truckee Tahoe Community Foundation as a staff member, I was invited to a luncheon with a girlfriend, and it was a luncheon of women of influence and affluence. I was neither of those, so I didn't know why the heck I was invited, but I was, and I went with my little girlfriend, Laura Mello, the girls know. We drove over to this hotel and walked in and said, you know, we're so excited to be this, we didn't know what it was. It was just a luncheon full of women, about this same group, all at different tables. And they said, Laura, you're at that table, and Martha, you're at that table. And we sort of went, oh, well, but we came together. So we'll be sitting together. And they said, no, you won't be sitting together. You're going to split up, and that's the whole reason for this. So we did, and we pouted a little bit. But after that luncheon, we both were waiting for our car, because we drove together. And I said, oh my God, I met the coolest women at my table. 10 women I'd never met before. They were so dynamic. They were all from different walks of life. And she said, me too. My table was even better. I had all these great women. I said, no. My table was full of really great, anyway. Long and short of it was, we just, as we were driving back, I said, there was a whole room full of just cool women that are energetic and know what they're doing, and some of them didn't, and it didn't matter. And I said, but didn't it just make you want to do something? And we both just went, yeah, I just want to do something. So I became a staff member and by the way, the only reason I do this PowerPoint, which I don't know anything, I got that off of the little cartoon people or whatever, is because if you're ever making a presentation, you don't want, if you're just standing up here, you know, by yourself, people start not listening to you, and then you're looking at your butt, and then they're going, oh my gosh, she has a string hanging off. And anyway, so please refer to the picture, not me. So anyway, fast forward to my boss asked me every day. I got this job as a donor relations officer at the Truckee Tahoe Community Foundation. Every day, my boss would come in and say, how are we going to raise $1 million? And I would say, nothing, really. Start clapping, you know, or singing. So she did this for like 30 days in a row, and finally I realized, oh shit, maybe, that's my jaw, $1 million. So I thought, next time she asks me that question, something's going to fly out of my mouth. I don't know what it's going to be. But here she comes again. Here she comes. Martha, how are you going to raise $1 million today? And I said, I'll tell you how, Missy. We're going to get 1,000 women, because I can do arithmetic, and they're going to give $1,000 each, and that's going to equal $1 million. And it's going to be like a women's thing and all that. All right, go forth. And shut my door, and I just kind of sat there and went, oh, So, fast forward again. Oops. Fast forward again to, what did I do? I called 5 friends. All right, is this still working again? I don't know.
Yes,
I like your phone. It is? Okay. So I called 5 of my friends, and I said, hey, well, first I wrote my check, which was sort of silly, because then I said to myself, wow, we only have $999 to raise, which was silly. Anyway, I was in complete panic. So I called my good friends and I said, hey, I'll buy you a cup of coffee. I had this weird idea to present. Well, these are all, I should have just taken them to a bar. Anyway, coffee. Looks like we've been at a bar, but these, I just sort of presented an idea that really didn't have any, anything to it. It was an idea. And they said, well, what is it going to be? And I said, well, it's $1 million. I can't write $1 million check. I know you can't write $1 million check. What if we go in together, though? It's like us really writing $1 million check, and then we can give it away to this community for all of the good purposes, projects, and services. They said, we love that idea. We're in. They wrote a check right then. We weren't even drunk. Anyway, so then we thought, well, we started this thing. So the next thing we did, I've got to figure out how to go, was we said, let's throw a bigger party. So we invited 50 women to a woman's home. We had pitched this idea and said, our objective at this party is we're going to recruit 50 members to the Queen of Hearts Women's Fund. If you ask me why it's called Queen of Hearts, I have no idea. But anyway, that's what it was. So we recruited 50 women for some unknown reason. We also, at this party, took their picture. And what ended up happening was, it's sort of like this was being co-created as we went along. So these first 50 women took their picture. We took this postcard and asked each of these women, there's Tamara McKinney, she's Olympian. You guys know her? Yeah, right on. But what we'll do is, on the back of the card, you see right here it says, where are you, with a question mark. On the back of this postcard it said, what do these women have in common? And we didn't list any names, it was just their face. We said, call the woman you recognize in this picture and ask her about the Queen of Hearts Women's Fund, which was very effective because we started getting calls. The next thing we knew, we were throwing more parties and more parties. I've never been to so many parties in my life. And the amount of wine that you can consume is a lot. I did it. So as we were throwing these parties, because it was the Queen of Hearts Women's Fund, we made it fun for women. And every time they became a member, it was sort of cheesy, but it went crazy, was we gave them, you can see these women, they have these little crowns on. Every time they became a member, you have this beautiful pendant or thing that you give away, and it's very classy. We gave away these cheesy 2-cent pipe cleaner Oriental Trading Company crowns that folded up. You wadded them up and then they unfolded. These women went crazy over those crowns. I mean, they were like, even if they didn't live in the area, they would say, can you mail me my crown? It's a wadded up 2-cent pipe cleaner. Anyway, what happened was we just kept going on and on and on and on. I have to look at my notes here so I'm not starting to ramble. What happened after that was, just like this Women's Fund, and like you've done, Summer, mothers started sponsoring their daughters. This is a 3-generation picture here of a mother, a daughter, and her grandmother. And they started, these two little girls are members. They have no clue what's happening, but they will. So it became really, really beautiful to see women sponsoring generations of women. And the reason we did that was just the same reason you're doing it, is when you can tell a little girl, I'm going to get old, believe it or not. Sorry, I really am going to get old. But it's going to be up to you to sustain this program and keep it going. So we also did some crazy things, like and Leah Butterworth, who's a member of your Women's Giving Fund, right there, helped us do some crazy things like Power of the Purse. And it was just a fun element we threw in there. We thought, we've got a whole room full of women. All women have handbags and purses. A lot of them have more than a few handbags and purses. What if we did a Power of the Purse, which is a really important, powerful message? Because the power of the purse is what you have in your purse that you can give back to charity, right? Everybody has $1. You can give it away or you can keep it, or you can give it to someone else who needs it. So we did a Power of the Purse where we got donated bags, used ones, new ones, celebrity bags, people from Summer Sanders, you could have, had we known you then, given your handbag. And in one of the bags, so we had an auction, raised a bunch of money, and in one of the bags contained $1,000 cash, which of course, the woman who won that gave it right back to the Women's Fund. So that was pretty cool. We didn't plan that, but that's what happened. So as we were going, as we were going, we started digging a little deeper. So as your women's fund grows, what happens is you women, hopefully, will be encouraged to ask some really hard questions. And as I said, we were sort of creating this as we went, but we decided, well, we should probably develop a women's cabinet, and we should probably start really educating women about making intellectual, smart decisions about philanthropy. Because if after they're a member and it's time for us to vote on how we're going to spend these funds, they need to understand what the needs are in the community, and they need to be educated on those needs. So we held a community day, which was 4 different areas, focus areas. Yours is women and children. Ours was education, animal welfare and environment, arts and culture, and health and human services. So we had 4 different areas that we were going to give our endowment funds to. What happened was we were gathering with other women and discussing timely issues and informing them about those important decisions that they were going to be able to make, and then informing their daughters and granddaughters. So we were very close to the finish line. I've got to get these numbers right here. You're way ahead, by the way. I will tell you. So with only 3 months to our deadline, we had only recruited 430 members. This is 3 months to our deadline. And I have to tell you, I told these ladies this story before, but if you think about, you've got to internally and personally think about what inspires you. I learned through this process what inspires me is somebody telling me I can't do it, right? So there was a man on our board. We love you men here, but don't ever do this. Anyway, there was a man on our board who, took me aside and he said, this is a really lofty goal, Martha. You're never going to achieve it. And I just went, oh, you, yeah. So anyway, I knew, and this was not a one-woman show. Keep in mind, this was all the creative co-creating through 1,000 women. But as we were getting closer, I thought, I'll be the pea picker, John. Anyway, we don't need those silly slides. What we did was, at the end, because we started to panic, we said, you know what, we're going to create a Fab 50. And what that was 50 women who were already members, and we said, here's what we're going to ask you to do. You're all go-getters, and I've told these women before, you've got 3 different kinds of women in your group. You've got connectors, people who know people and can open doors and can introduce you to people, but that's kind of it. I mean, that's all they're willing to do too. So it's like, I'll introduce you and then I'll see you later. And then you've got mavens, the ones who can articulate your mission statement and your objective. And then you've got those closers who can say, I'm a member, this is passionate to me. So this 50 group of women, what we asked them to do was either make an additional $5,000 gift or just recruit 5 more women, just 5 more, to get us over that hump. And what happened was sort of a really friendly, fun competition. And what we also found was, which is very important in your group, we all kind of looked like all of you, right? I'm looking out at this sea of women, and I remember that sea of volume I just heard in that other room, and I was like, oh my God, this is bringing back memories. But we all kind of looked alike, and one of our members of this Fab 50 said, we need some diversity in the room, okay? There are a lot of women out there that should be a voice at this table. And our demographic, just so you know, anybody here been to Truckee Tahoe? Okay, so it's kind of the same, where it's a resort community. It's very, we've got over 300 plus nonprofit organizations. The community is very giving. But we've also got and there's not a lot of ethnic diversity, however, we do have a significant Hispanic population, right? There are housekeepers, there are gardeners, they're the people who are rolling up their sleeves to work. They run our nonprofit organizations, they run our family resource centers. And so one of our members, she's not listed here, and I don't know why that guy's in the picture. It was always some random guy who tried to sneak in, like, huh. Anyway, these women are all part of the Fab 50. But we, one of our members said, you know what I'm going to do is I can't make, I don't want to give you another $5,000. I can. But what I want to do is I'm going to sponsor 5 Latino women because what our perception of what's needed in this community isn't her perception. And we're never going to know it unless she's sitting at the table with us. So what happened was we started getting women as part of the Women's Fund who would normally, we would never associate with. And I told the group I met with last night, I said, what's great about what you're doing is that, and what we did, is it's not political, right? It's not religious. It's not about who's who. It's not about who isn't. It's not a sorority. It's about doing good for goodness sake, period. It's the Women's Giving Fund. That's all it is. It's nothing more than that. But that's big. And deep pockets don't necessarily mean anything other than deep pockets. So all of that to say was, after we started this Fab 50, we were able to, in 3 months, actually exceeded our $1 million goal. And we achieved that by being a little bit creative. So we thought, oh my God, we know there's 1,000 women here, but how about if we get some corporations like Vail, who just came on board with your organization, and we got 3 different corporations to give gifts of $25,000 each. What that meant was we said, you can give these to your employees, who women in your company who would be asset to the Women's Fund, or we can help identify women in the community that we know can't financially make that commitment right now, but if they're not at the table, our Women's Fund really isn't representing all of the women in this community. So that's what they did, and I'll tell you, the women that we honored with a sponsorship, you know, we brought them all in a room, the organization, the corporation who gave that $25,000 bestowed it to them, sort of like a scholarship to these women, and to this day, those women who didn't write the check themselves because they couldn't, they didn't have the financial resources, are the biggest asset of that Women's Fund. I'll tell you, they're the ones, and it was a really smart decision that we did that. So after we raised the $1 million, we had a huge celebration with more wine. And we thought, what are we going to do with all these pictures? Well, we did have 1,000 photos of headshots of women. And so we made this giant poster. It's kind of hard to see, but it listed every single woman. And another thing that you're doing is once you reach your 1,000 women, you can keep recruiting women, obviously. We hope that grow. But for those of you who haven't joined tonight or sort of on the fence or going, why the heck am I here? I don't know if I'm going to do this or whatever. You will be part and can always say, just like Summer said, I'm a founding member. I was one of the founding members. So when we're all really old and walking around, I'm a founding member of the fund. So that was a fun thing. We bestowed posters to all of the women. Just something I ask myself every day. And it's just good to know in your own heart. You don't have to share it with anybody. Deep pockets or not, women have the power to affect change. So just ask yourself every day, what's my intention for anything? What's my intention of being at a party? What's my intention of joining this fund? Maybe it's a networking opportunity. That's good. That's great. You should be. Maybe it's because you don't want your name not on the list. That's also fine. Maybe it's really because you want to do something bigger than yourself. And I've always told people in our fund, this is not about, you just got to sort of take this out, it's not about you. It's about something bigger than you. So if you take that away, it becomes so much more meaningful because you're going to make such a positive impact for women and girls in this community that it's just going to be really, really cool to see. I will not speak to these individually, but these are the positive impact of our funds over the years. We started this fund in 2006, The first year, again, we had 4 different focus areas. I know you're looking at doing some larger, greater impact grants, which is very cool. We were able to, at the end of, after the grants were submitted, or the grant applications were submitted, we had established a grants committee, and then it went out to vote in a ballot, just like you do for the President of the United States. You vote for the ones. So what we saw happening was, and this is a great way for all of you to be involved, if you're passionate about a particular cause or project or important need in your community, you can, as a member, advocate for that cause. And what happens is you start having these very meaningful dialogues with one another. And what's even more exciting is when you have disagreements. You know, if all of us were the same, this would just be, I don't know what you call it, a club. But we're not. That's what's so great, is that we're all different. So you can see, $25,000 granted the first year, gave a hospice vehicle. It goes on and on. The next 4 or 5 years here, 40,000 one year, 40,000 another year. It just goes on and on. We gave everything from mentoring programs to environmental programs to educational programs to animal welfare. I can tell you that what's so neat about knowing what you've given the money for is riding along a bike trail, like all of you guys do, or on a hiking trail, and you're walking along going, we funded this. And I'm here with my girlfriend that I can talk to and say, you still have an opportunity to be a part of this. Even though you're up here just part-time, you're a part-time resident here, but this is the kind of stuff we're doing, and you're taking advantage of it, right? So we continued with different community projects. This one here is actually Leah, I think that's you in that picture. That's a long time ago. But what we did was every year, still, we do community projects. We do a Truckee Cleanup Day, we do a Watershed Day, Planting Flowers Day, replanting trees, animal projects. This one down here was Sunset Magazine, if you're all familiar with that. Ask us, they said, we'll give you $25,000 if you'll recruit the docents to give tours of this idea house for 6 weeks. Well, a lot of organizations went, oh my God, 6 weeks of docents all day long. And I said, I've got some girls, I'll give it to you. So they gave us $25,000 just for being the docents of this house. Oops. And then we continued. Oh, there's Leah again. It's Leah show. We did continued recruiting events even after we raised that $1 million. This was an event called Flip Flops and Lemon Drops, lemon drop martinis, and asked all the women to come with their toes painted. And it was just a fun summertime event that we recruited women. So all in all, since we started, we've been able to give 22 grants for a total of $280,000. And that's, again, from an endowment. We had to wait till it earned a little bit of interest to be able to do that. But we're very, very excited that we did. So what inspires us? I told you a little bit of what inspires me, is that if somebody says I can't. 16 years ago, this is just a little bit about me. Sorry about the blurry picture, but I'm not a PowerPoint expert like Summer. 16 years ago, 3 days after I moved to Truckee full-time, I was also a part-time resident. My husband, Gaylord, at the time, was diagnosed with cancer. And 11 months after his diagnosis, he lost his battle to cancer. So, I'm gonna cry. So, I was in Truckee about this time of year with my young son, and it started to snow, and I just said, oh, shit. This is, plus I can't cook, there's that whole thing, oh my God. Anyway, I'm sharing this story because what happened was I literally knew 3 people kind of well before I moved there full time. Because of the mounting medical bills that we incurred, I lost my home, I lost my car, I lost everything. I filed bankruptcy. I was, believe it or not, one of the women collecting cans so I could go buy frozen pizza, my son. And I'll tell you what, that Truckee community scooped me up. They just scooped me right up. I didn't even know who these women were. They were mostly women. Their husbands came out and plowed my driveway. But it was one of those moments where I thought, this is the kind of community where I need to raise my son. Fortunately, I met this is many years later, I now have a wonderful new husband, the second love of my life, Jim, and have a blended family. I now have two 26-year-olds. So a blended family that I love with all my heart. And I share that story just to say to you, you guys, you never know what's going to happen in your life, right? So one of you out there, that woman before might be you right now. Or you may know a woman right now in this community who's having a challenging time. Or you may be this woman who's having the time of her life and is very, very blessed and is very, very grateful. I say all that because you're almost at the finish line. And the fact that you have 500 members, Jody and Susan and Trish, is phenomenal. And your deadline is when? In spring? You're totally gonna make that deadline. It's one of those things where it's now's not the time to let the momentum wane, right? So I share my personal story to let you know that any woman you encounter in Park City, you never know what her potential is, right? And I feel like it's sort of like karma. When I had the opportunity to blurt out, let's do a women's fund, what for me it was giving back to all of those women in that community that scooped me up and really saved my life. And it's about finding the women, your grocery store clerk, your manicurist, your hair girl, your dry cleaner people, your house cleaner, your neighbor, your sister. You've got an unbelievable time right now. We're almost to the holidays, right? Instead of giving your mother-in-law another scarf or candle, she didn't want a scarf or candle this year, give her something that is so meaningful to you, right? Just give it to her. Or give it to your neighbor and say, this fund is so important to me that I want you to join me. I want you to be part of this. Your voice needs to be at the table.